Hello and welcome back. Sandy and Jesse Rodriguez team. Hope you're having a great weekend. It's a beautiful day here in San Antonio. And welcome to my patio talk. As I mentioned on my previous video, for the next 7 days, I'm going to be sharing with you my insight and thoughts, comments on the 7 habits of highly effective people by Stephen Covey. And before I proceed today with the first habit, which is be proactive, if I may, let me read something that I found in the preface. They go over it before they go into which one of the habits, and I found this extremely interesting, and I thought that I would share this with you before I give you some of my thoughts and comments on the first habit. It says, no one can persuade another to change. Let me repeat that. No one can persuade another to change. Each of us guards a gate of change that can only be opened from the inside. We cannot open the gate of another either by argument or by emotional appeal. I thought that was really good. I highlighted that in red, and I thought that was something profound. So getting on with the first habit, what I was going to mention, just a quick summary. I'm going to be talking about what's called the private victory. And we'll be talking 3 habits as we progress. We start from the very bottom as being dependent on others. As a child, we depend on others as a child. And then we start growing, we start moving up in the echelon on stages of more interdependence. So we're going to start at the bottom with lesson number 1 of private victories: be proactive. Now, being proactive doesn't just mean that you're taking the initiative. As to being, it means being responsible. Now, taking the initiative doesn't mean that you're pushy, that you're aggressive, or even obnoxious. It's just taking responsibility. And in the being proactive is that you are, or we are, part of the solution and not the problem. Let me correct the camera here, if you don't mind. So we're part of the solution and not the problem. Another key aspect of being be proactive is listening to our language. Listening to our language. In other words, oh, poor me, I can, in other words, don't be the victim. Find alternatives. If you see a problem, find alternatives and options. So you have to be very careful, and you listen to the language that we use. As we start growing now and learning more about the 7 habits, we're creating a greater self-awareness about ourselves. Where do we focus most of our time? In the book, it talks about having a circle of concerns, a circle of influence. Yes, you and I are worried about our health, our family, about the world's problems, poverty. But when it talks about where are you focusing your time, we should be focusing our time in the circle of influence is those things which we have a control over. Have a control over with a positive attitude, rather than to having that circle of concern, and your focus in that circle of concern is so large that you're focusing more on the negative, blaming others, being on an accusing attitude. Oh, we're being the victim, we're victimized. So as you start looking at where you're focusing most of your time, you should start looking at the circle of influence, those things which we can control. And as I was going through the first habit, there were two very interesting key points that I picked up on. One, it talks about learning to make commitments and keep commitments, just like we are doing here on this group with the mastermind. We have made a commitment, an informal commitment to one another, that we are holding each other accountable on a day-to-day for the 90-day video program. But more important than when they're making the commitment is making a commitment to ourselves. That's really profound, making a commitment to ourselves. Yes. And the power to keep the commitment to ourselves and trying to control things that we can control ourselves. Like I mentioned before, on the circle of influence, if I really want to improve my situation, if I want to improve my situation, I have to work on the things I control myself. Yes, myself. And to keep that commitment to myself. Those were two very key. One thing that I may share also with you, it mentions in the book, is that this book is not that type of book that you read, go through it, and then put back in the shelf. I'm learning that now what they meant by that. There was a statement in there. We will start growing, and every day I'll encounter a situation, and I'll come back to that and see which one of those habits. Right now we're talking about be proactive. I'll look at that and see, okay, is there something in there that I should have applied to that particular situation? So, as the book says, it's something to keep by your side, and because you will be referring to it on a day-to-day basis. And one other thing that you'll find out is at the end of every habit, especially with this one we're talking about be proactive, it talks about homework. And it talks about that for the next 90, or excuse me, for the next 30 days, is to be aware. Be aware as to where I'm focusing my time, my language, the surroundings, and to be aware of those key points that I mentioned to you. So for the next 30 days, that's what I will be also concentrating on. So, your comments, please. Thoughts on the first habit, be proactive, as we continue for the next 7 days on these 7 habits of highly effective people. Sandy and Jesse Rodriguez team, I bid you a good day. Take good care of each other.